The public hearings always go through the planning commission before they get here, so been there, done that.
You know this.
Yeah.
Did you have anybody at the planning commission?
Not that I can recall.
Because of what?
They're junk mail, right?
Yeah. Let Troy deal with it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. Well, if you guys are ready. I don't know. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. We'll start with a moment of meditation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we call the roll, I would like to make a motion to excuse Nicole Condry, mayor, from the meeting tonight. She is with Team Fast Tracks, wrapping up the U.S. Nationals for skydiving today. They're hoping for their third win, so we wish them luck, and I'd like to excuse her from today's meeting.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
And then, Amy, if you could, we'll roll call for the meeting.
Mrs. Thomas,
Here.
Mr. Moon,
Here.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Here.
Mayor Condrey, which we excused, Mr. Farrell.
Here.
All right, I guess we will go ahead and get started with the first public hearing. We have 4 public hearings this evening. I will turn it over to Mr. Yoder.
Sorry, I'm not.
One, the mic, got to get that on. And second, I don't typically cover the public hearings that I'm aware of, but I'm
Okay.
happy to if you'd
You were
like.
giving me a look, and I thought maybe I was pointing to you.
Sure, I think James will be
James,
covering that.
would you like to present these for us?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. So tonight before us, we have a request by applicant Adarsh Mani for approval of a map amendment and zone change at 1303 and 1307 Woodlawn. The property is currently zoned I-1, which is an industrial park district. The applicant would like to change the zone to an R4, which is attached residential district. The project needs approval by City Council for the map amendment and zone change. Here's a picture of the property. The subject property, as I previously mentioned, is zoned I-1. The purpose of the I-1 Industrial Park District is to provide for areas of development of industrial areas that have minimal impact on the surrounding environment. The applicant proposes a map amendment and zone change, as I previously mentioned. This is to permit multifamily dwellings, therefore the applicant is, the property is currently zoned I-1, which is an industrial district. The property owner would like to have residential on the bottom floor as well. Therefore, they're wanting to make a map amendment to allow for residential to be on the bottom floor as well, which would require the property to be changed from I-1 to R4. The Middletown Master Plan, the comprehensive plan land use map designates this property as a special interest area. We have 8 different special interest area. This one is the Oakland neighborhood. I'm sure you're quite familiar with it. Provided this in here if you wanted any backstory, I can provide it to you or move on. Notice requirements. So public notice was published in the paper and letters were sent to all property owners within 200 feet of the property owners. All letters and emails that were received were forwarded to the City Council. I did not receive any. I've also included the review criteria and code text and map amendment for your reference, if you would like to use that tonight. And then, sorry. Planning Commission recommended approval of the map amendment to change the zoning district from I-1 to R4 for 1303 to 1307 Woodlawn Avenue on July 12th, 2023. Ends my staff report. I do not believe the applicant is present. Do you have any questions for me?
I guess just my only question is, I assume it was industrial because it bordered Armco, AK, plot of land?
I'm sure that was part of the reason. There was a zone change from residential to I-1, I believe back in the 90s for an indoor industrial packaging. So they packaged some type of mechanical equipment back in the 90s. So they had the zone changed from, I think it was like D3 to industrial, and that's kind of stayed on. But the lower floor of the building has been vacant for well over a decade now.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? No. Seeing none, I will move for anyone who would like to speak do we do approval
You can do it
first?
whichever way you want, but typically you'll have those that are in favor. Well, first you'll have the applicant come up, and then you'll have
Okay.
those in
But seeing
favor
that
of it.
the applicant is not here,
Yep.
if there's anybody who'd like to speak in opposition to the proposed amendment? No. Seeing none, I will ask for anyone who would like to speak in favor. Seeing none, I will close this public hearing and move on to the second public hearing. James, if you want to just hang out down here.
Pull up a chair.
I'm sorry, I thought there would have been public comment. So tonight before us, we have another map amendment and zone change. This one is from residential to industrial. So the request is by applicant 2207 Oxford State Road LLC. A little confusing with the name. The property is approximately 3 acres, and it is currently zoned R4 attached residential district. So as the property you see here, this was a residential home. I believe it still is, but they are in the process of selling the property to a trucking company. So the zone changes from R4 to I2. This covers it. Here's the property. It is surrounded and it would be contiguous with the remaining I2. So as I previously mentioned, the applicant is proposing a zone change from R4 that would not permit industrial uses. Therefore, the applicant is proposing a zone change for the property to join the contiguous I2 general industrial district to the south. The comprehensive plan land use map designates this property as industrial. Industrial is defined as primarily a mix of light, heavy, and high-tech industrial uses with secondary uses that include office, warehousing, and storage. If you look on the map, the property is approximately down here, which is zoned industrial. For the Middletown Development Code, all public notice was published in the paper and letters were sent to all property owners within 200 feet of the property. All letters and emails that were received before the City Council, I received none. Also included the review criteria for your reference. Planning Commission recommended approval of the map amendment to change the zoning district from R4 to I2 at 2208 Oxford State Road on July 12th, 2023. So just a bit of a recap. This is a residential property that's been used for commercial uses, primarily industrial. They're wanting to do a zone change so they're able to sell the property and for a trucking company to move into the property and use it as permitted. That ends my staff report, and I do not see the applicant.
Do I have any questions from City Council? Seeing none, I will open the floor to any comments in favor of the proposed amendment. Seeing none, I will ask for any statements in opposition. And seeing none, we will go ahead and close that public hearing and move on to the next.
So tonight before us, we have a request by applicant JA Development on behalf of property owner Ravello Properties for approval of preliminary development plan to construct 47 single-family attached residential homes with private streets and public water, sanitary, and storm sewers, as well as a 1.92 acre commercial outparcel on Town Boulevard. Property is approximately 8 acres. The subject property is currently zoned B2. The purpose of the B2 Community Business District is to provide for areas of the city that will contain a wide variety of commercial and office uses to meet the needs of the city and region that require access to major arterial streets and are in close proximity to major residential neighborhoods. Here's the current property. As previously mentioned, the applicant is proposing a planned unit development that will feature 47 single-family attached residential homes with private streets. For all new subdivisions, the applicant shall provide sufficient information to demonstrate a variety of base architectural styles or models dependent on the size of the subdivision in accordance with table 1210-1. Essentially meaning as there's 21 to 50 different proposed lots, there should be at least 4 different base models and styles. The homes will require review and approval by the city's Architectural Review Board. Here's the first model. Here's the second model. The comprehensive plan land use map designates this property as regional mixed use. Regional mixed use is defined as primarily commercial uses that cater to the I-75 traffic and regional market, with secondary uses that include office, medical, service, and residential. Here's a site plan also indicating the utility easement that runs through the property, the commercial outparcel, the private street with the 47 units, the proposed retention basin, and then like an open space walking path area. For reference, this is just north of Nicholas Place Apartments. The applicant provided what the 3-unit building and 4-unit building front yard setbacks would be. As indicated, there'd be approximately 25 feet from the street, which would be a private street. Side setback of 10 feet minimum between buildings. And I've included the R4 attached residential district. Although this would be a planned development, I think this is the closest way to compare the two when it comes to front yard setbacks. So if you look at multifamily dwellings, 4 units or more, we have 30 feet for front yard setbacks, 6 feet for side yard, and 30 feet for rear yards as well. It's the same for 3-unit as well. So just a little bit shorter in the front yard setback. The applicant also provided a vehicle trip map, I guess, vehicle trip generation documents. I'll let them speak to that a little bit later. As previously mentioned, notice requirements, public notice was published in the paper and letters were sent to all property owners within 200 feet of the property. I received none. No feedback. I've also included the review criteria for the plan development and zoning map amendment. Planning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary development plan to allow for the construction of 47 single-family attached residential homes with private streets and public water, sanitary, and storm sewers, as well as the 1.92 acre commercial outparcel on Town Boulevard on July 12th, 2023. Covers my staff report. The applicant is present. Do you have any questions for me?
Seeing no questions from council, we will go ahead and open up the public hearing for any statements in favor of the proposed development.
Hello, council. Thank you for your time. My name's Alex Betch. I'm with Bear Becker. We're the land planners, civil engineers, surveyors for the applicant. We worked on the plans that you saw up on the screen. I don't want to be too repetitive because James did such a good job, so I'll try to keep it fairly brief with all the information. But as he said, we're requesting to rezone this from the B2 Community Business District to a planned development We are planning to keep a commercial out parcel up along Town Boulevard, approximately 1.92 acres. And we would, the permitted uses that are allowed within the B2 district, we would plan to just carry over and utilize that same permitted use table for this commercial out parcel as part of the plan development. And then the remaining land in the back would be attached single-family residential, 2-story. There'd be a mix of 1 and 2 car garages. And we're showing 47 units, which is around 5.62 dwelling units per acre. We think this plan is in alignment with the comprehensive plan, which calls for mixed use, predominantly commercial use, but as an alternative use, it calls out for residential. And we think it serves as a nice transition between a lot of the commercial that's happening along Town Boulevard and the residential uses that are to the south and to the west of the property. As you saw in the plan, there is a transmission line easement that kind of cuts diagonally through the property. We are limited to what we can do underneath that, but we wanted to utilize it in some capacity, so that's why we're showing a walking path through there as an amenity for the residents. We are limited in a lot of the vertical elements that you can do under there, so you can't do structures or anything like that. Open space with a walking path we felt was the best use of that land. We also did, as James mentioned, it's not required, but per staff's request, we provided a trip generation letter. And basically what that is, it's not a full traffic study, but it uses methodology from Institute of Transportation Engineers, trip generation manual, and a trip generation handbook based on the programming that we're proposing, and it comes up with what they think the total trips are for the AM peak hours and the PM peak hours. And based on that, with the 47 residential units, and we're estimating approximately maybe a 9,000 square foot strip retail plaza on the out parcel. If you look through the letter, it shows the number of trips generated at those different peak hours in and out of the site. Given the nature of Town Boulevard, we don't feel like there should be any issues with traffic with the number of trips that are being generated from the proposed uses. I'm here if you have any questions. I'm also here with Joe Christo, who's the applicant as well, if you have any questions. Thank you so much for your time.
I did have a few questions. Was just wondering the timeline for construction, both on the commercial lot and the residential lot.
Question?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Joe Christo, President of Christo Homes. I reside at 51 Traditions Turn in Montgomery. Timeline for the commercial, there is no timeline. We've owned that property for quite some time, and that's why we are reviewing some different options for the property. So at the current time, there is no interest for that commercial lot. However, we are redefining that space rather than the entire being in the business district. We just have defined that as one commercial lot, and we can market that differently now.
What about the residential piece?
Residential piece, depending on this process, we'd be eager to get those townhomes started. It's a unique property for Middletown. I think it's a nice asset. It's got nice proximity to the highway, close to shopping, restaurants. So we would start that as soon as we would get our approvals.
And these would all be owner-occupied units?
Owner-occupied.
All right, seeing no other questions, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do I have anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposed development? Anyone else? All right, I will move on to any statements in opposition of the proposed development. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close that public hearing and move on to our final public hearing. James?
So tonight before us, we have 3 different text amendments for review. The first is a consideration of text amendment for Chapter 1218, Parking Access and Mobility, subsection 03, General Requirements. This is to staff request to change 1218J1 to include Class 3 vehicles single unit 4 tires, including trucks and small trailers, to the approved list of commercial vehicles on residential lots. So as you can see in the section below, we are removing an A, grammar error, and then class 3 light duty, just allowing for larger vehicles to be able to be parked on residential lots. The next one is Chapter 1212, 06B4. This is for the Historic Commission, where the city incurs costs to abate public nuisances and gain compliance with Chapter 1210. So this text amendment and the next text amendment were recommended to us by our law department, and this is essentially just an extension of nuisance cost assessments from the ordinance change that occurred this May, and changing the language to make it more consistent. So we are adding in where it is highlighted and removing where it is crossed out. So we are adding, essentially removing the 2.5 times cost multiplier and adding in for the total amount of cost for compliance to be added to the property owner. Hoping that makes sense. So staff requests also another change at 122807D to include clarifying language for processing fees and penalties pertaining to the violations identified by the Development Code Administrator. Once again, the city's legal department requested this amendment due to the number of cases concerning this matter. Additionally, we added in anything that is highlighted. We do have our legal representative, Ben Yoder, here. If you have any questions, I would like to defer to him. Except for the first text amendment, I can handle that one.
Can you remind me, maybe you don't know, what the administrative processing fee is again? It's been a while.
Yeah, I can speak to some of those issues. So in essence, this all started with the notice abatement process with the county auditor's office. And the city's code sections included a 2.5 times fee for it. And Ohio law makes clear that you can't do it that way. You can charge an administrative fee for, you can charge the actual costs, plus you can charge an administrative fee. But the administrative fee is supposed to be, the actual costs that it are for copying, for staff going out, taking pictures, the mileage, using their vehicle, postage, things of that nature. So the administrative fee is the actual costs of the administration, portions of staff salary, things of that nature. Okay. Does that answer your question?
It does. I was kind of looking for a number too, but if you don't have that, it's okay.
Yeah, so it's the actual cost, and then there's an administrative fee. I don't know what the actual number is by chance. I'm not sure if...
That's okay, Ben. I can
Anybody?
get it later. I just
Yeah.
was curious if you guys know it. How much is it, Devin? 100? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on the final text amendment, proposed text amendment. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? Seeing none, I will take any comments in opposition to the proposed amendment. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close that final public hearing. And I don't believe we had any citizen comment cards, Amy, unless you got any more. So we will move on to council comments. Zach?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Really one thing, just Nicole's not here, obviously, but we kind of know that according to Rick in the paper, that we're going to have 3 new council members next year starting. And really, I just wanted to thank you guys for your service, for what you guys have done. Monica, I knew a little bit going into this. Tal, I didn't really know you. And it's exciting that I feel like I've made 2 probably lifelong friends. I know we've spent the last couple of years really trying to get this city along the path that we all want to see. So it's a tough job. It's not easy. And it's not just sitting up here in front of council meetings. It's hours and grueling decisions that are going to shape. And you've got people coming at you saying this and saying that. And you try to keep everybody happy, but at the same time, you realize you can't really please anybody at some point. So just wanted to thank you guys for your service. What you do does not go, well, it doesn't come easy, and I appreciate it. So thanks, that's all I have.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move it on down to Councilman Mutersball. Sorry, I'm very casual. I just called you Zach, Rodney. I
You
don't,
are
if
Rodney
I'm,
and
if
Zach.
I'm very casual,
We've been called
I
worse, right?
apologize
Yeah.
if I'm offending anyone.
You ought to see what I
Rodney,
get
if
called
you'd
on
like-
social media. It's okay. So, same thing. I want to echo what Zach just said. I mean, it's funny because I knowing you from the restaurant at Bandanas, it's one of my favorite places to eat. And then knowing Tal, I was the chief when Tal was on council, and just knowing you guys, but getting to work with you, I don't think people fully understand how much you guys love the city and how much passion you have for it. And Zach hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's really easy to complain, but it's really hard to get up here and make the tough decisions and have to eat those, a year later when it doesn't work out or it does work out. But just working with you two has just been a joy. I told Zach today, we were talking on the phone, I just said, I hate losing you guys. It's going to sting because you guys truly love the city and you're passionate about it. And people generally don't see that. They just see the vote. They don't see the stress that goes with it. And I always think back some of the votes we had that were stressful with all of us and how we would talk after, just in casual conversation, walking out and the stress that comes with that. So just appreciate you guys. You guys do a fantastic job. And I know we've tried to talk you guys into running again, and you're not, and I get it, I understand. So, but just thank you for that. You guys are awesome. Other thing I have is I want to say congratulations to Devra and Ashley on your promotions. I can tell you, it made me happy to see. I've worked with Devra for years and Ashley for years, and I know that you guys could go other places. I know that for a fact. I know you've been recruited, and you chose to stay here. And that makes me really happy because we need people like you to stay and be here to get it done. So thank you for choosing to stay here with us when you could have went elsewhere. And I know we'll get where we need to be with you guys up there with Nathan and Paul. So I'm really happy about that. Last I have is, I know Jerry Lewis has done a fantastic job with the farmer markets and the food trucks and stuff. I mean, my goodness, every time you turn around, there's an event. Tomorrow there's a farmer's market downtown. They're pretty cool. I went to a couple of them. The food trucks are there, and if anybody's been to a farmer's market, it's really neat to just go see what they have there, what you can buy. And the food trucks that she has at Leverson Park had great turnout. So try to support those the best you can. I know it's hard because a lot of people don't get off work until 5, but try to support those. But Paul, I want to tell you, just great job by Jerry putting these events together. They're not easy to put together. So I'm so glad we have somebody planning these events. And with her and Byron now kind of doing stuff, getting the word out about Middletown, it's really going to serve us well in the future. So that's all I have, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
My turn?
Tal,
All right.
you're up.
Zach, Rodney, I really appreciate those words. I appreciate your comments and look forward to a productive couple months. Last thing, and really the only thing I'm going to mention is it's somewhat of a somber note. Did want to recognize that we lost two really just incredible men of our community since we last met, with Scott Nine and Don Hawkins passing a day and a half ago. I think the Nine name is certainly synonymous with public service in Middletown with Scott and Betty Lou. Just incredible folks, an incredible mentor, and just very kind. We're certainly going to miss him, and my thoughts go out to Janice and her children and grandchildren. And then on Don Hawkins, Don's been in town his entire life. He was on the 56-57 state championship team that was inducted into the State Basketball Hall of Fame, and has certainly been a civic and business leader in town since he got into business. So my heart goes out to Susie and the family, and we'll miss Don.
I didn't even know that, Tal. Sorry not to
I
interrupt
didn't know
you.
that either.
Yeah,
That's shocking. I just did a deal with him.
Thank you, Tal. And I would like to echo those sympathies to both of those wonderful people's families. Growing up, we knew the Nines pretty well. My dad serving, but it's certainly a big loss for our community. So thank you for recognizing that, and thank you to Rodney and Zach both for your kind words. I've enjoyed serving with both of you for the last 2 years. It's been quite a whirlwind 4-year term. I know Tal's been here twice as long as me, and when you look back at your service and you can think of all the things that you've accomplished and all the good that you've done for your community, it is overwhelmingly impactful, just for me and for my family and for all of the families in Middletown. So I have felt like it was an honor to serve with you guys and for the citizens. So thank you for that. In the last 4 years, a lot of things have happened, and I spoke with Rick about that and just talked about how much I feel support from my family and my friends and my business partner and just all of the people in my life who've allowed me to take the time to serve our citizens in the way that we do with meetings and special meetings and all of the boards and commissions that we commit to. And it takes a lot of time. So I'm looking forward to getting back to spending more of that time with my family and my friends. And I am encouraged by all of the people who have put their names in the hat to run, and I wish them all the best of luck for the candidates for the mayor's seat as well as the candidates for city council. So all of them have my best of luck. In addition, I'd like to also recognize the 104th birthday of Mr. Tracy Isaacs and to thank the police and fire and city staff who helped put together just a really special moment for him. On Saturday, we met at Baraka Church and took a brigade of jeeps and police and fire vehicles and drove past Mr. Isaacs' house and got to read him a proclamation on his 104th birthday and to celebrate Tracy Isaacs' Day. So he was very tickled by that. It was really special for his family and friends. So just wanted to thank staff for that as well. Speaking of events, this Saturday we have the Port Middletown Art Festival, which is going to be, I spoke with John Ferrando today. I think they're actually moving it a little bit closer to the city building here. It's going to take place along Donham Plaza and sort of be focused on some of our partners with the Middletown Art Center, and they'll have some vendors and things out on Donham Plaza. So that's Saturday morning. I believe it starts at 11 o'clock. So encourage everybody to get out there and support art in Middletown. And that's all I have for this evening. So we'll go ahead and move on to city manager reports, and I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Welcome, council. Just to give you a first quick update, we've done a lot of work over the last week with holiday hoopla. They've trained me better from whoopla to hoopla. And I think you're going to see some exciting things. You're going to see a beautiful downtown this Christmas season. So we're doing a lot of work, and I think it's going to be pretty neat downtown with the decorations and hoopla event. So that's going to be exciting, even though it's only September. We're going to be excited about that. So with that, the only other thing we have this evening is I'd like to introduce Matt Dukovich with the Butler County Regional Transit Authority, and he's going to give us an update on our transit system. Thank you, Matt.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for letting me be here today, as Paul said. My name's Matt Detkovitz. I'm the Executive Director at the Butler County Regional Transit Authority. Just a quick reminder, we're your transit partner. The city is, of course, the grantee for your transit system. You are the operator of record responsible for following all the rules from the feds and everything. But we are the expertise who helps you put that service on the road, spend that money, and put it into that investment. Keeping that in mind, I've got a couple of updates today. I'll be respectful of your time, so I'm going to talk quickly. Please stop me if you have any questions or anything, though. I think actually it's probably a good thing that we don't talk that often. It means things are running smoothly and we don't have much to talk about, but we wanted to give you an update since we haven't spoken in a while. The first thing is what we call CincyLink now. So we were probably in front of you almost 3 years ago, I think, to talk about providing some commuter service from Middletown down I-75 into downtown Cincinnati. That will become a reality in January this coming year. 4 morning trips down 75 with a couple of stops, probably starting up by the Meyer at Town Boulevard, going through Liberty Township, Westchester, and into downtown Cincinnati. Probably be a brief stop uptown as well for folks working in those hospital systems. Or University of Cincinnati. Will also offer the reverse commute, so people will be able to come up north using that service as well. We are proposing a $5 one-way fare, but we'll also be proposing what they call fare capping, which is kind of a new equity tool that technology allows us to use now, where if somebody pays a fare repeatedly and they reach the price for a monthly pass, we automatically give that to them. So this is actually a little bit higher than the current commuter fare in and out of Cincinnati, but the cap will actually be just at or below the current monthly. So we're trying to incentivize people to use the service. So that is coming. and we just got bus wraps for it. It won't look quite like that, but the branding and everything you see here is what will operate. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about briefly is just a quick update about ridership. I know sometimes questions about zero fare come up when we have other things come in front of council. There have been some interesting updates with ridership in particular. So 2019 was the last year where fares were charged on your fixed route system. So I gave you a benchmark 2019. We kind of don't use 2020 because those numbers look real skewed. But the zero fare began in 2020, but you can see on the fixed route and your ADA door-to-door service, we've seen significant increases in ridership. Fixed routes up 49% over 2019 to current rides or projected rides for 2023. And the ADA service is up almost 190%. So we're keeping an eye on those numbers to see what's going on there, but I wanted to let you know where that was. Moving right along with fare considerations, I know this comes up, so we just wanted to put some reminders out there. Obviously, fares are the jurisdiction of the city as your transit system. But we want to remind you that collecting fares costs money. We have to invest in wages for people to count and do those things. We have to provide oversight for that process to make sure we're handling money correctly. And of course, there's capital equipment investment to make sure we can collect all of that and keep track of it and keep it secure. The other thing with fares is that you take them right off the top when you are asking the feds to reimburse you for grant money. So before we can ask for grant reimbursement, fares have to come off. So right now, we dip right into your grant money for expenses. The other thing important to note is that fares paid for about 15% of operating expenses in 2019. So that's kind of the last benchmark we have for that. And the last thing that kind of comes up related to the zero fare is the loitering. I know this has been a topic in the past before. Wanted to be clear, we don't really have any problems with loitering on the bus. You would think with zero fare that might be an issue, but we find that most of our people have somewhere to go. And we have a policy, a couple of policies that our operators and employees use to make sure that traffic is moving on and off the bus. We have experienced some problems with loitering at the bus station at 55 South Broad Street. We'd had that issue before pandemic, got ugly for a while when we saw some of the shelters close. I will say it has improved dramatically, but it's a problem we've had before zero fare, after zero fare, and of course there's things we're working on all the time to improve it, but it's not really related to the zero fare item. Moving right along, other things, these are coming up action items related to transit. ODOT has asked the city to help partner with them to provide technical assistance for the city of Middletown, as well as 9 other small urban transit systems within the state of Ohio. It is a budget neutral item. ODOT's going to provide some money to the city as a grantee for the small urbans. And we will the city will contract with a group called NeoRide, which is a council of governments who specializes in group purchasing for transit systems and technical assistance. And they will use those funds to provide services to the city of Middletown, as well as the other small urban transit partners, which you can kind of see highlighted in the map. When I say small urban, that's a designation the feds give for transit systems that operate in cities with less than 50,000 people, around that number. So they're the people you'll be working with are peers who are doing a lot of the same things. I can tell you BCRTA has gotten a lot of benefit out of this relationship. We work closely with NeoRide on the group purchasing and the other items, so we're looking forward to that. ODOT grants, you already had a first reading of this. I know that came up. They're realigning their calendars to make sure they're trying to align grant applications, I think, with the biennial budget, so that's why that's back so soon. Another thing that's not in front of you tonight, because it's a rather long document, but it's coming, is Title VI plan strictly related to transit operations. Of course, Title VI, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is meant to prevent discrimination within your transit system because you receive federal money to support it. It's a large plan that talks about how we make sure that happens. You'll get it in the packet. But that is something that's required to be done because the city will get what they call a triennial review from the Federal Transit Administration next year. They'll be looking for all those things. So we want to make sure we have that renewed, which is required every 3 years. Other things on the agenda tonight are purchases. There is a purchase for what we call a light transit vehicle, or LTV. It's a new style, low floor. If you've seen the price, it might provide a little sticker shock. We've seen significant increases in bus prices since pandemic. We're still struggling with supply chain issues. I know that's not anything new to council. You've been dealing with it with other vehicle procurements. but this has been vetted. BCRTA does your purchasing for you, but of course, city pays the bills at the end of the day, which is why we bring it to you. The other thing we'll be purchasing is some collision avoidance. This is equipment that'll go on those commuter buses traveling up and down 75. What we're buying is essentially what you get in your car now. That seeing eye that tells you whether you have an immediate collision happening or there's pedestrian or somebody in your blind spot. Believe it or not, that doesn't come on any of our equipment. We have to buy it separately. And the last thing I wanted to let you know, this comes up every now and then again when transit items are on the agenda, is just some future planning. I know there's been discussion about offering later service in the evening, things like that. The BCRTA just completed a pretty robust plan over the last 12, 14 months. There was a lot of public input, covered the entire county, including the city. And the consultant has provided several suggestions for improving frequency, headways, making things a little bit more efficient, removing service from some areas where we're not seeing very good ridership right now. So I just want to let you know we'll be looking at that. If you have anything that you want to see or hear about, to share that with the leadership, and I'm sure they'll pass it on to us. We'll be looking at those things and probably be bringing you some suggestions and recommendations in the next 12 months. So I think that's everything I had. Try to be really quickly. Are there any questions about anything I can answer for you or anything related to transit that wasn't here?
I do have a question. I think it was the light transit vehicle.
Yes.
That had the handicap accessible.
Yes.
You mentioned this, I apologize. Obviously, I don't think those are going to be on the typical routes. Like, how are those going to be used, and how do people get access to them?
Yeah, sure. So that vehicle we're purchasing, we'll call it a mixed mode vehicle. We can put it either on the fixed line, or we could put it on like a door-to-door type service, your ADA service. You saw those two different numbers. So that ADA service is complimentary paratransit that's mandated by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So people who have a disability that prevents them from getting to a bus stop or riding the system, they fill out an application and can be eligible for that ADA service. So more than likely that vehicle will be used in that ADA service. And as you did see in the picture, it is a low floor vehicle. We've never had one of those before. Ramps tend to be somewhat dangerous, or I'm sorry, lifts tend to be somewhat dangerous when we're lifting people 3 feet into the air. So the industry is trying to move more towards that low floor ramp accommodation.
So that would be kind of scheduled, probably non-emergency medical type of stuff.
Yes.
Not necessarily, hey, my car broke down, get me to my...
Yes, the city operates ADA. BCRTA operates a more of a Uber Lyft style service that is available within the city, but that's not part of what you're operating with your funds.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Hey, Matt, could you, the one slide about the trips to Cincinnati, I think it was the first one.
Yep.
How often is that? And is it like 5 days a week, 6 days a week,
Yeah.
7 days a week?
So that'll be 5 days a week is what we're thinking right now. We're finalizing the schedule. There's been a lot of study of travel patterns because, as you know, commuters have disappeared a little bit since pandemic when we planned this in 2018 or 2019. So we are actually believe there'll be 4 trips in the morning, 4 trips in the afternoon. They'll probably be in reasonable quick succession, 30 minutes apart. There'll be a lull in the middle of the day. We will be offering a guaranteed ride home program, so in case somebody has an emergency or something and they need to get back midday, that'll be there. But we believe it will be 5 days a week. We may look at a reduced schedule on Friday because the current ridership for the route that BCRTA pays Cincinnati Metro to operate, the ridership is considerably lower on Friday, but they haven't done a good push to make sure that to offer the service to people coming back.
What about weekends, or is it just Monday through Friday?
Probably not weekends right now. The equipment will be available. We don't have any ridership data for it, and obviously there's an operating cost to that. So I think that's something we would keep the finger on the pulse, and as we look at reallocating funds within the transit system, if there's service that goes away during the week that you'd like to allocate to weekends, that would certainly be a possibility.
I was thinking Bengals games and maybe if offer tailgating service.
Yeah. There are some rules with operating the school or operating the service on a regular schedule that we have to be careful with. But Tank in Northern Kentucky does something similar. So yeah, there are certainly options, and those are things we can look at.
That's awesome. I think that's really pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll get you some pictures of the bus.
4 trips per
Yes. Oh,
morning
yeah.
on 5 days per week.
Yes. Yeah, and that's supported by the current ridership. Our planning team took a good look at what people were doing right now, riding into Cincinnati, people commuting from the area. So it's all based on a lot of data, a lot of number crunching. So.
And if they needed to say, get to the airport from downtown, there's another transit system that they can get on from downtown Cincinnati to get them that far.
Yeah, you bet. In fact, that was actually one of the connections we looked at. Transit Authority in Northern Kentucky, your tank runs the airporter, which comes into downtown Cincinnati, so you could absolutely make a transfer.
Cool, very cool. All right, thank you.
Very welcome. Thanks.
All right, next we'll move on to the consent agenda. Amy, if you would like to present that for us.
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file the Board and Commission minutes from the Cemetery Board of April 19th, 2023, and the Civil Service Commission from June the 15th and July the 20th, 2023, to confirm the personnel appointments of Jacob Compton and Alicia Shawdary to the position of Corrections Officer in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Jennifer Holland to the position of Dispatcher in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, William Hurst to the position of City Engineer in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Engineering, and to request the approval of a purchase of one CV SGT vacuum excavator trailer from Vermeer of Washington Courthouse, Ohio, in the amount of $59,900 for the Water Distribution Division. Oh, and I'm sorry, there's one more here. To receive and file the oaths of office for Logan Dooley, Tyrevis Hill, Anthony Scott, and Conant Smith.
All right, can I have a motion from council?
Motion.
Second?
Amy?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
For the motion to authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services contract with Greeley and Hanson for design services for a new raw water transmission main in the amount not to exceed $173,300.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Oh, may I please have a roll call?
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Item B, to approve the purchase of highway rock salt from Compass Minerals America Incorporated of Overland Park, Kansas, in the amount of $100.33 per ton for the approximate usage of 3,500 tons over the 2023-2024 winter season, approximately $351,155.
So move, oh,
Sorry. So move for adoption.
Don't have anything to add. That was my fault on the last one. You were probably waiting for me.
Second.
anything to add for this one, Paul?
No, not at all.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Item C, to authorize the city manager to enter into a land lease with Butler Tech for a portion of the Middletown Regional Airport for the construction and operation of a new aviation and educational facility to be operated by Butler Tech.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Unless you have any questions, we don't have anything further to add.
I'm just curious, do we have a timeline on this?
Nathan?
In discussions with Butler Tech, they are, I think, wrapping up their consultant selection process and awarding a contract to a design firm. From there, you're probably looking at finishing of construction plans probably, and then probably bidding this thing out early next year is, I think, their preferred timeline as well.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yes, sir.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Item D, to authorize the city manager to enter into a renewed lease contract with Butler County Warbirds Incorporated.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Paul?
Nothing further to add, unless you have specific questions.
Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Item E, to authorize the city manager to enter into an electric aggregation agreement with Energy Harbor as recommended by Energy Alliances Incorporated, provided that the accepted aggregation rate is at or below 0.0699 kilowatt hours, kilowatt, at the time of execution for a period not to exceed 24 months.
So moved.
Second.
Council, actually, we have Rich with Energy Alliance to give you a little bit of a brief overview on the electric and gas aggregate agreement and what the cost will be.
Thank you, Council. So we did go out to bid last month, and we did get pricing back a couple weeks ago. Was able to talk about it with the team, and thought we were in a good spot to bring it to you for consideration. So, mainly the things we were looking at were, and as we go through the program, is it's got to be competitive to Duke's rates, right? This whole thing is not worth doing unless you're going to be competitive to Duke, which was a very easy thing to cross off right now. We were looking at terms for either 12 or 24 months. We feel that's kind of the best spot to do things right now based on what we know in the market, based on what we know at Duke's rates, and going anything beyond that just would have not been, we didn't feel would have been beneficial for the city to consider. We obviously wanted to work with suppliers who have free and easy opt-in and opt-out so that people can come and go as they want. No termination fees so that if people decide to join the program, that they can leave at any point if they wanted to either go back to Duke or shop with another supplier. And then something else that we've been looking at is, the ability to add renewable energy as a portion of that, and we'll get into that a little bit more detail on the next slide. We did receive 3 responses back. We discarded the one that had the highest price because it just was the highest. They were by far the highest, so we threw them out. And then we discarded another one because of term. They couldn't offer a 24-month price. They can really only offer anything up to a 17-month. And we felt that going into that second summer, it was very important. So what we got back, and the recommendation I had made to your staff, was that we consider looking at Energy Harbor as a supplier, and to consider the 24-month term. The pricing that we got back last week, this would have been late last week, would have been for 6.81 cents per kWh. And that compares to Duke's currently 9.94 cents per kWh. So this is roughly a 25 to 30% savings that people would get compared to taking Duke's default service. So that would be the price that would be, or at least we've asked for an at or below, but in the case of the other day, that would be the price that would show on the letter to say if you do nothing, this is the price that is offered to you. The price below that, the 7.24. So what is that? We're finding a lot of communities, as there's more interest in renewable energy and giving people the option for that, there is a vehicle called a renewable energy certificate. So for facilities such as wind facilities, we'll talk about just wind here because this is where they would come from, wind facilities across the country, they generate electricity. They also generate this other financial vehicle called a renewable energy certificate. They're able to sell that to the market. And what that really does, it makes an investment in renewable energy. So it's a way where you'll have cities like the city of Cincinnati, the city of Columbus. They are spending material dollars on putting steel in the ground to build these solar facilities. That's something that's very costly. It's something that I think a city takes a lot of risk on. So this is a way for cities to offer a product that makes an investment into renewable energy, but at a much significant discount, as well as having the city not take on any financial risk of having to, say, build a solar array somewhere. So that 7.24 would also be on the letter, but if somebody wanted to take that offer, that would be something that they would opt into. So again, by doing nothing, they would get the default non-renewable option, and then people who wanted to pay a small premium for that, the difference is probably around $4 a month for somebody. They can opt into this renewable energy option. So again, making the recommendation for the 24 months, and really the biggest thing for that is to go into 2 summers. We know Duke's rates now. We know them for parts of next year that get us into 2025. So I think it was key to get these rates that were well, at least the default rate, well lower than 7 cents into a second summer to be able to offer your residents, some pretty good stability, because we were obviously seeing where prices are right now.
Thank you so much. All right, Paul, did you have anything else to add?
Nothing to add.
All right, can we move to a vote, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item F, to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement for natural gas aggregate, an natural gas aggregation agreement with a natural gas supplier as recommended by Energy Alliances Incorporated, provided that the accepted aggregation rate is at or below 0.699 CFF at the time of execution for a period not to exceed 24 months.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Rich, did you have anything to add?
So the only thing to really add on the natural gas is, we don't have pricing back yet. So it took some time to get the data from Duke, so we're waiting for pricing to get back. We should get them back, I think, first thing next week. So that's why the ask is for, similar to the electric, we asked for an at or below, though I had pricing to show you where things came back. We don't have pricing back on the gas, but that's where, we built kind of a little buffer into where I'm seeing pricing have come back for some other communities, we've talked with, to be able to give, the city manager the opportunity to execute if we find something that's attractive. I will admit, I'm probably 50-50 on if we do anything, right? I at least wanted to have the ability to give him the authority to do something if the pricing comes back and it's right, next week. The gas has definitely been a little bit of a trickier market. We're not seeing as many players bid. So again, though I'm asking for the authority, for him, don't know if we'll do anything, right? That's where I'll work closely with him and his staff on if we feel the pricing is right, we'll do something, but wouldn't also be surprised if he comes back to you at a future meeting and say, you gave me authority, we decided not to do anything based on what we saw come back with those bids.
Can you give us an example of what some of those rates are, like what we saw with the electric? What is the current Duke rate, and where do you think you can?
Yep, so right now Duke's around 65 cents, right? And again, we built it a little bit higher than that. They changed their rate structure a little bit from the summer to the winter. They're also variable, so where the electric is for the most part pretty fixed for 12 months at a time, the electric is variable. So we saw the gas market move roughly 15% over the last 2 days. It went up 7 and then back down 7 in the last days, kind of heading past the weekend. So that's where if I see something in around 60 cents, I think we do something. If we start getting into those mid sixes, upper sixes, we probably don't. But again, built in that buffer for the idea if this market ran crazy in the next week or two, while we're trying to do this, Duke's rate would obviously move in the same direction. Maybe we'd consider something, but if it seems to feel like it's going to be pretty steady, over the next couple of weeks, and we're not, say, lower than 65 or 60 cents, that's where I would make the recommendation that we just kind of put that aside.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? No. Amy, can we move to a vote, please?
Mr. Meterspaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Item G, to authorize the city manager to execute a parking lease agreement with East Point 200 Office Equities, LLC, in order to obtain rights to utilize parking at the existing office building on Atrium Boulevard occupied by Paychex in support of the Arena and Event Center project.
So move.
Second.
Nothing to add unless you have questions.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, Amy, can we please move to a vote?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Meterspaugh.
Yes.
All right, moving on to legislation. Now it's Mr. Yoder's turn.
All 23 items worth of turns that we have
Yes.
tonight. So,
Yes.
yes, we have 23 items on the agenda tonight, 9 of which are proposed for passage as first or second reading emergencies, those specifically being items 1 through 6, and then items 10 through 12. So before we get started, I'd just request a motion from council waiving the charter provisions pertaining to second readings and effective dates of emergencies.
Mr. Yoder, I don't mind making the motion, but I need to abstain from number 2.
Yep,
Be okay to make the motion?
yep.
Okay, and then seeing that we only have 4 people here instead of 5, do you have any advice on how to handle number 2?
Yeah, so in essence, to keep it very simple, you need a majority vote of 4 out of 5 council members to pass things as an emergency. If one is abstaining, that means you only have 3. By default, under Ohio law, it will still pass, but it won't be passed as an emergency, such that, yes, item 2 specifically, to the extent the other 3 vote in favor of it, will pass, but that specific item won't be effective for 30 days.
Okay, so okay to make the motion and okay to include that in the emergency.
Correct.
Or should we just not include that in the emergency motion if there's no possibility for it to be an emergency?
Same difference, whichever way you want to go. So you can vote to waive the charter provisions to all of them, and then you can vote on each item individually, just like you normally would. And then for that, to the extent Tal abstains and you all vote yes, it will still pass, but it will pass as a
As a
non-emergency.
non-emergency.
Yep.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and 30 days to enactment as it relates to O 2023-64, O 2023-65, O 2023-66, O 2023-67, O 2023-68, O 2023-69, and O 2023-72, O 2023-73, and R 2023-25. Did I get them all?
Do I have a second?
Second. That's why we wanted you to run again, Tal, so you can do that for us.
I can read.
Amy, can I have a roll, please?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw.
Yes.
Thank you. So first item is ordinance number O 2023-64, an ordinance authorizing an American Rescue Plan Act infusion grant program agreement with the Denny Lumber Company for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds as a provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Lawley, do you have anything to add to this?
Nothing further to add.
Amy, can I have a roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Thanks. And I might add, items 1 through 6 are all second readings, so these were obviously before the board at the last council meeting as well. Specifically turning to item number 2, that's ordinance number O 2023-65, an ordinance authorizing an American Rescue Plan Act infusion grant program agreement with the Bearded Brewer LLC for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds as a provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Nothing further to add.
Anything from council? Amy, can I have a roll, please?
Mr. Moon,
Abstain?
Mr. Muerspaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Great. Third item is ordinance number O 2023-66, an ordinance authorizing an American Rescue Plan Act infusion grant program agreement with Combs Veterinary Services LLC for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds as a provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue and declaring an emergency.
Move.
Second.
Nothing further to add.
Seeing no comments from council, Amy, can you please roll call for us?
Mr. Muerspaw,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Fourth item is ordinance number O 2023-67, an ordinance authorizing an American Rescue Plan Act infusion grant program agreement with Repper Pagan Law LTD for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan funds as a provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Nothing further to add.
Seeing no comments from council, may I please have a roll?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw.
Yes.
Fifth item is ordinance number O 2023-68, an ordinance authorizing an American Rescue Plan Act infusion grant program agreement with Techie Brothers LLC for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds as a provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second?
Nothing further to add.
Amy, may I please have a roll call?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw.
Yes.
Sixth item is ordinance number O 2023-69, an ordinance authorizing an American Rescue Plan Act ARPA infusion grant program agreement with New Wales Brewing LLC for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds as a provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Nothing further to add.
Amy?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Seventh item is ordinance number O 2023-70, an ordinance accepting the annexation of 93.429 plus or minus acres of territory located in Lemon Township, Butler County, Ohio, as required by section 709.04 of the Ohio Revised Code. A second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
This is annexation, nothing further to add.
Any other comments from council? Amy, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Eighth item is ordinance number O 2023-71, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Department of Environmental and Financial Assistance for the 18th Avenue Water Main Replacement Project. Again, a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Nothing further to add.
Seeing no comments from council, can I please have a roll call?
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Ninth item is Resolution R 2023-24, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications for state fiscal year 2025 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants under the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program. Again, a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Council, this will allow us to apply for grants through ODOT for workforce mobility operations programs.
Seeing no questions from council, may I please have a roll call?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Item 10 is ordinance number O 2023-72, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Cintas Corporation number 2 DBA Cintas Fire Protection to purchase a Fike FE-25 Clean Agent Automatic Fire Detection and Suppression System for the computer server room and declaring an emergency. This is a first reading emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, this is the automatic fire suppression system firefighting foam agent for the computer server room.
We don't have one currently.
We do, but it had to be fixed, or had to be replaced. Some of the foam systems are all being upgraded out of those systems.
Is it because the foam goes bad? What's the mechanism
One
that
is
fails there?
Troy or Mike can get it. I know from a firefighter standpoint, the old Hallow system that they used was found to be cancer causing, but that was a few years ago. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, Bill, thank you. I said Mike, but I thought Mike was in there.
So the computer server room used to have an old Halon system. Right around January of this year, the Halon system basically dispersed the agent, and so dispatch was notified, and fire came out and took a look, but there wasn't a fire in the server room, just had dispatched the Halon in the system. We had OR Protection, who was maintaining the system, come out, and they gave us a quote around $20-some thousand. Don't quote me on that, but a pretty significant amount to replace an older Halon system, which pretty much is no longer used anymore in the clean agent suppression system. So we have gone out to RFP twice, and we have not received any responses back, but we did have 2 quotes from 2 different vendors. This one was the cheapest one that we had, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Seeing no other comments from council, we'll go ahead and move to a vote.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
11th item is ordinance number O 2023-73, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Provision for the purchase of in-cruiser camera systems for the Division of Police and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Council, this is for the purchase of 4 video camera recording systems for the 4 new police cruisers that you approved at the last council meeting. Total cost is $42,784, and it will come from the computer replacement fund.
I have a question, Vice Mayor. I hate to put you or Chief Burke on the spot. I was going to send an email today, and I got tied up and totally forgot, so I apologize. Are we still doing, is the long-term plan the in-car cameras and trying to incorporate the body cameras?
Yes.
So,
Yes, so actually, we have the 10 cameras now that we're going to put into service as soon as possible. We actually have a meeting tomorrow morning, and then we have the grant in front of the state to receive an additional 35 cameras, Nathan? Was it 30? Oh, for a total of, I'm sorry, a total of 30 to 35 cameras is what we hope to have.
so we're still doing the, but the in-car cameras still, will they have the audio, the body mics on, Chief? The same thing? Yeah.
And those body cameras that we received already were paid for using grant funds that we received, yeah?
The 10 that we have now were paid out of information systems. I'm not sure, Bill, if that was from a grant or from... I thought it was from our normal budget,
Okay.
wasn't it?
But then
Yeah,
the
it was
grant-
out
the
of,
grant would
it
allow
was
us
out
to
of the...
double that number.
What's that?
The grant would allow us to double that number, yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We don't get a lot of questions on this, but we do get questions on it from the community about the body cameras and the in-car cameras, and so that's all, just curious. So
Yep.
I wanted to ask you the email, and I just forgot to send it. So.
Yeah, and it's also kind of, we've got the cameras, we're just trying to navigate through the video redaction specialist position that you have to have to redact the stuff from the video when it's requested.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Thanks.
What's our odds you think that we get the grant? I don't know.
I'd say we got it last year, but once again, we weren't aware of the $135,000 it was going to add to, which we did not budget for.
Right.
So I'd say we have a pretty good chance of receiving the additional body cameras.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Amy, can I please call for a vote?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
12th item is resolution number 2023-25, a resolution determining that a petition to establish the Renaissance Arena District New Community Authority is sufficient and complies with the requirements of section 349.03 of the Ohio Revised Code in form and substance, setting the time and place for a public hearing on the petition, authorizing notice by publication of such public hearing, and declaring an emergency. Again, a first reading emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, this here is an indication that our project out at 122 and Union Road is really coming to fruition. With each week we have the Friday meeting, it's getting to a point where we're like, wow, this is really coming together. Nathan, do you have anything to add on this?
You guys are still having the weekly meetings?
Yes.
Awesome.
1:30 every Friday afternoon.
Awesome.
And then there's meetings through the week on various things.
Awesome. It's exciting.
Good way to start a weekend, right?
It is, absolutely. The meetings actually on Fridays are getting shorter and shorter, which means, wow, this stuff is, it's going to happen.
But you don't leave right after the meeting, right?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
Sounds good.
Just
I'm there
because we
till 8,
would don't
9
mean he
o'clock
would.
on a Friday night.
All right, any other questions from council? Can I please call for a vote, Amy?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
All right, the remainder of the items 13 through 23 are just first readings, all to be covered at the next meeting. First one of which is item 13, which is ordinance number O-2023-74, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the extension of a contract with Rumpke, Inc. for refuse collection and disposal and declaring an emergency. Again, no action till the 19th.
So council, this is, allows us to extend our contract with Rumpke for 2024. All services will remain the same. As you see in the workbook, we had a 3-year contract, which we also gave us the right to renew it in 23 and 24, so our price will remain the same for 24. And then during the 24 year, I'm sure Scott and Sam and Nathan are going to be busy negotiating a new contract with Rumpke.
Any questions from council? Thank you.
14th item is Resolution R 2023-26, a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application to the Ohio Public Works Commission for Project Year 38, requesting funding for the installation of approximately 9,600 linear feet of raw water transmission main to serve 13 production wells within the city's well field, to enter into agreements for such funding and declaring an emergency. Again, no action requested till the 19th.
Paul?
Council, this is a $5 million project that will allow the city manager to submit a grant and loan app for a project for installation of 9,600 linear feet of new water transmission lines that serve 13 wells in the water treatment plant's well field.
If we don't get the grant, does that change the plan here, or?
I'd say we'll probably have to
Scott's shaking his head.
decide what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, it has, yeah.
And we're pretty confident that that grant money is going to come through.
Awesome.
I'm getting a thumbs up from the back.
For the back row.
Those transmission lines, I think if you read, are pretty old. They're like from the 60s that are there now. That's, man, I was a little kid then.
No comment.
I just seen the look on your smiley face.
Yep.
So youthful.
Yeah.
All right, we can move on to the next one, Ben?
Great. Item 15 is ordinance number O 2023-75, an ordinance amending the contract with Shook Construction to accept the guaranteed maximum price for Phase 2 of the downtown CSO storage basin project. The first reading.
Okay, council, these next two items deal with the downtown CSO storage basin. The 15 and 16, they authorize an amendment to the professional services contract with Brown and Caldwell. The First Amendment authorizes their criteria engineering services for the pre-construction and design phase of the project. The amendment is for what we call criteria engineering services during the construction. The fee totally is not to exceed $478,000. Actually, number 15 is to amend the contract with Shook Construction for the guaranteed maximum price of Phase 2. And then legislative item number 16 will be to approve staff's recommendation of moving forward with Brown and Caldwell for their criteria engineering for the project.
Just a general question on the next three. We didn't start this contract too long ago. It seems like we're already having multiple change orders and requests coming in pretty quickly. Should that be concerning or not concerning, or?
No, this was always anticipated it was going to work this way. We were going to have a initial contract and then a pre-construction, pre-development work contract, and then this is it. This is the final piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So,
thanks, Scott.
thanks.
Ready to move on? Item 16, ordinance number O 2023-76, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to a professional services contract with Brown and Caldwell for owner's advisor services related to the downtown CSO storage basin. First reading.
Paul, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
No? Let's move on to the next one.
17, ordinance number O 2023-77, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Tesco and Butler County Regional Transit Authority for the purchase of one light transit vehicle. First reading.
Council, as Matt stated in his presentation, the Butler County Regional Transit Authority would like to purchase a light transit vehicle in the amount of $260,865,000, paid for out of Fund 530, which is the Transit Fund.
Any additional questions from council? Kind of went over this one. All right, Ben?
Sure. Item 18 is ordinance number O-2023-78, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with NeoRide to administer small urban coordination projects for the Middletown transit system. First reading.
Council, as once again Matt talked about, this is authorizes the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with NeoRide for our transit system. This essentially is a council of governments with about 25 transit agencies in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, the state up north, West Virginia, and Arkansas. It is football season, so college football season, so I'm not allowed to say that M word, right? This allows NeoRide to administer smaller urban coordination projects like leveraging grant funding, promotes group purchasing, and providing technical assistance.
All right, seeing no comments from council, we'll move on to the next item, Ben.
Item 19, ordinance number O-2023-79, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Roscoe Collision Avoidance, Inc. and Butler County Regional Transit Authority for the purchase of collision avoidance technology. A first reading.
Council, this is a sum not to exceed $132,434,000, and it is budgeted for, once again, in Fund 530 Transit Fund.
Paul, do any of the vehicles currently in their fleet have some form of collision avoidance technology?
Not
or is
at this
something
time,
that's-
correct?
No, this will be new.
This will be new technology for the buses.
Okay, but it's something that's now required or recommended? Yeah,
Recommendation from our risk pool, it was a thing, a product that was group purchased through NeoRide and made available. Like I said, it's very similar to the products you have on the car you bought in the last couple of years with the immediate collision warning, blind spot awareness,
Yeah.
those types of things.
yeah.
Very similar to what we have on all our fire vehicles now.
Okay, so they all have the same.
Our fire apparatus and medic units, yes.
I'm curious, do we know how many, if you don't know the answer, how many bus-related collisions have we had as a result of not having this kind of technology in Middletown? Yeah, if you have anything that you could share with us before the next meeting. I'm curious if there is anything to reference that, we're spending this money and
Yeah,
have
I don't
avoided all of
recall any
these.
with our transit buses.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. With nothing else to add, we'll move on to the next item.
Item 20 is ordinance number O-2023-80, an ordinance amending sections 1212.06, 1218.03, and 1228.07 of the Middletown Development Code included in the Middletown Codified Ordinances. First reading.
From the public hearing, I don't have anything further to add.
Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the next item.
Item 21 is ordinance number O-2023-81, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for the parcel located at 1303 and 1307 Woodlawn Avenue from I-1 Industrial Park District to R4 Attached Residential District. First reading.
Nothing further to add.
Then, can we have the next item, please?
Item 22 is ordinance number O-2023-82, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for the parcel located at 2208 Oxford State Road from R4 Attached Residential District to I-2 General Industrial District. The first reading.
Nothing further to add.
Again, another one of our public hearings, so we'll move on to the next ordinance.
The 23rd and final item of tonight's agenda is ordinance number O-2023-81, an ordinance changing the zoning classification.
Sorry, Ben, the last one was 83,
Oh, did I say that wrong?
81.
Oh, sorry, yeah, O-2023-83.
It's been a long meeting already.
I've made it nearly all the way through those, but yeah.
We're almost
Yep.
there.
So it's ordinance number O-2023-83, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for a portion of Warren County parcel number 070-217-60522 from B2 Community Business District to PD Planned Development District and approving a preliminary development plan. First reading.
Paul, anything to add?
Nothing for that.
All right. That was our final item and our final public hearing item. Do we have any new business from council? No. All right. Seeing no new business, I will close out the meeting for this evening until our next meeting, which is... Oh, we do have an executive session. Do I close the meeting and then...
Nope, you actually will just move to go into executive session after you read that long list, and then
Okay.
Typically you'll just announce whether or not council intends to take action afterwards, just so people know.
Right, okay. Well, we will be moving into executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage.
So moved.
Second.
Amy, can I have a vote, please?
Mr. Meterspaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
All right. Now I'll close out the meeting and invite everyone to join us for the next city council meeting on September 19th, 2023, a meeting that I will actually not be in attendance for. So I know I've asked for an excuse there. I'll be out of town, so I won't be here, but we'll see you all next time. And if there's anything that we need to move back from exec, I don't believe there's anything that we'll be voting on. No. Okay. So we don't plan to take any action after we return from executive session. All right. Thank you all. Have a nice evening. Do I need to hit it again?